Hello, Intermediate Algebra 1 students. In this video, we're going to be starting Chapter 5, starting with Section 5.1, Identifying Linear Functions. I mentioned previously that in Chapter 4, and when we introduced this class, that algebra is one of the main ideas of algebra. Almost the entire thing. There's a few other things thrown in there. But one of the main ideas of algebra is understanding how quantities that change affect each other. So how does the temperature affect the growth rate of plants? How does the time that you spend exercising or running affect your mile speed? How does a measure of, say, pollution affect the lifespan of an animal that lives in that area? So we have lots of things that we measure. Sometimes those things we measure affect each other, and we're trying to understand how that works. How do we describe that with math? So in the last chapter, Chapter 4, we talked about what is a function and how we represent a function. Now we're going to narrow down, we're going to be specific about linear functions. Alright, so in this first video, we're just going to look at graphs of various things. We'll say relations because sometimes you may not even have a function. Some of these will be functions, but we're going to try to figure out if we actually have what we call a linear function. So in this one, we're just going to identify linear functions by looking at this graph. And I've got 3 examples here and 3 examples on the next sheet. Alright, so I'm going to start with the first one. To make it into, first of all, see if you've got a linear function, it has to be a line. Alright? And we can have a really good discussion about what the word straight means. But for our purposes, if you can lay a ruler by it, here's a ruler. It's actually a big ruler, you're not going to see the whole thing. But if you can lay a ruler by it, then for right now, we're okay with calling that straight. There's a whole area of math that we can talk about, but probably don't want to confuse you at this point. So we're going to see different graphs where we've got things that look like straight lines. And I hesitated when I said that because in math, all lines are going to be straight, at least while we're talking about flat XY coordinates. All right. Like I said, it gets a little tricky with some higher level math, but don't worry about that. I'm only concerned like if you have someone who's taken higher level math listening over your shoulder, like, wait a second. Let's just let that person know he did acknowledge it. But for our purposes, things are going to be straight. All right, so let's look at this one right here. So it does seem to be a straight line. So that's good. And the question is it a function? Well, it's going to pass what we're going to call the vertical line test. And we talked about that in the last section. The vertical line test says that if I go to any x value, it's only going to cross there once. So here's x equals 1, it only crosses right here. Here's x equals 2, it only goes right here. The vertical line test actually says that if you draw a vertical line, if it crosses in more than one place, it's not a function. So it's kind of like a test for things that are not functions. So this does appear to be a function. So yes, this is a linear function. If I look at the second one right here, this appears to be some sort of curve. It's bent, so it is not straight. So this one is not a linear function. And before anyone gets worried about that or anything, that's all you gotta do. Let me move that up a little bit so you can see it. That's all you gotta do. You can tell right away it's not going to be straight. You can't draw that curve with a ruler. In class, in my experience, sometimes students will ask, well, what is it? If it's not a linear function, what is it? And I'm like, hold on, put the brakes on, just hold on. You don't have to do that. That will come later. but you don't have to do it now. Right now, all you have to do is just recognize, hey, no, that's not a linear function. And if you see this on a quiz or a test, you're just going to say no or choose no. That's all you got to do. All right? If it does say explain, then you can just say it's not straight. All right? For the third one, now this is where it gets tricky, because it does look like a straight line. But it does not pass what we call a vertical line, because it is a vertical line. Every x here, the x, which equals 3, the y could be anything. So I've got 3, 0, 3, 1, 3, 2, 3, 3, 3, 4, 3, negative 1, 3, negative 2. So this is not a function, which means it's not a linear function. It can't be a linear function if it's not even a function. Now that one's kind of tricky. And you will be seeing that. So please remember, if it's a line, it's a linear function except for vertical lines. This is the only time you're going to see a line that's not going to be a linear function, if it's vertical. All right? I'm going to switch over. I'll take a picture of this so you can see it. I'm going to switch over and do, if I grab it, some more graphs here. And we'll do these 3 quickly. So let's look at, I guess this would be number 4, even though I didn't number them. So it looks like a straight line. It's not vertical. Looks so good. So this is a straight line. And it's not vertical. And when I say vertical, I know it's going up, but when I say vertical, I mean it's going directly up, like this one right here. Okay? These two things are good. So we say yes. This is a linear function. All right, now the next one, I guess that'd be number 5. So if you look at these two, that one and that one, we said both those are linear functions, but we start to think about the fact that if they kind of go at an angle a little bit, maybe that's what we're looking for, because this one didn't go at an angle, and I'm using that word cautiously because we'll talk about what that means later. This one didn't go at an angle, it just went vertical, and I said it was not a function. So my first thing that I think about it here is, well, that's not kind of going at an angle, it's not going oblique or anything, so maybe that's not a function. But yes, it is. It is a straight line, and it is not vertical. Just like the last one. Straight line, not vertical. This is not vertical, this is actually horizontal. Horizontal lines are okay. So we say yes, this is a linear function. Now let's look at the last one. I think the last one, by now maybe you're seeing it. So this one has a curve. So no, it is not a linear function. And like I said, that's all you need to do for that one. You don't have to make it harder. But it's also not even any other type of function. Not even, I mean, it's not linear, we know that, but it's not even any other type of function because it fails the vertical line test. Okay, so in review, remember the graph of a linear function is and I'll put it in parentheses, straight line, but not a vertical line, which goes like this. And that's all that you have to look for. Sorry, I didn't realize that wasn't on the screen. Okay, you'll see it when I take the picture of it. All right, that's the first one. We'll see you in the next example.